The Chronicles of Myrtana Archolos is an open-world action-adventure role-playing game based on the popular Gothic series, which was originally developed by Piranha Bytes in the early 2000s. As a total conversion mod for Gothic 2, created by fans and released near the very end of 2021, Archolos offers a full-length, standalone experience with up to 100 or more hours of content in an all-original map and story, plus tons of new mechanics and upgrades to the existing Gothic formula. It's therefore worth stressing that this isn't just a mod for Gothic 2, but it's an entirely new game altogether, one so extensive and professional in quality that it could easily be confused for an official Gothic game. It is completely free to download and play so long as you have a copy of Gothic 2 Gold Edition on which to run it. The mod was originally written in Polish and features professional Polish voice acting, but includes English subtitles as well as other language options for the interface and subtitles. While you could conceivably play Archolos as your first introduction to the Gothic series, due to it occurring chronologically first and being a mostly separate adventure that requires no prior knowledge of the Gothic series to understand, it's an experience that's probably best enjoyed if you've already played Gothic 1 and 2 so that you can appreciate the extra refinement that it brings to the established formula, in addition to all the small references and Easter eggs that set up future events in the series. The game takes place during a tipping point in the Orc War against humanity, several years before the start of Gothic 1, as the Orcs begin to seize the upper hand and as the war's effects begin to be felt among the common folk in the outer reaches of the kingdom. You play as a young man named Marvin, fleeing from your hometown with your brother Yorn to the island of Archolos in hopes of escaping the war and starting a new life. While trying to integrate yourself with a local farming village, your brother is mysteriously kidnapped, thus instigating the main quest to track him down and learn more about the people responsible. The rest of the game involves exploring a densely structured open-world map where enemies and loot do not scale to your level, completing side quests for various NPCs and communities to gain their trust and earn valuable rewards, and leveling up your character by investing skill points in different categories so you can get better at fighting all the difficult enemies that populate the world. If you're familiar with the early Gothic games, then you'll feel right at home with Archolos, since it's based on the same engine and uses all of the same core mechanics, even reusing a bunch of the exact same audiovisual components. That simple basis does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of achieving that authentic Gothic feel, since it shares more of the same fundamental DNA than every other Piranha Bytes game to have come out since Gothic 1 and 2. However, Archolos does feature a certain je ne sais quoi in its design that extends a little deeper than simply copying those superficial aspects. It really achieves an authentic feel in the tone and atmosphere, the early game difficulty and progression, the world design and exploration, as well as the general quest design and character interactions, with the added benefit of a lot of key improvements to various mechanics that weren't necessarily problems in the original games, but are all the more welcome to see in Archolos. This includes things like new quality of life improvements, new evolution on existing mechanics, all new features and systems, and corrections for certain issues that Piranha Bytes never had the chance to address originally. You could even argue that some things are done even better than the originals, which is facilitated by the developers having 20 years of fan feedback from the original games to incorporate into Archolos. So in a way, it does kind of feel like Gothic 2 Night of the Raven, but better. But with that being said, is it actually a better game than Gothic 2? In terms of scope, ambition, content, features, and innovations, sure, I think it absolutely is. But in terms of overall enjoyability, for me, I'm not so sure. Because despite the impressive amount of effort and overall quality to everything, especially for a team of volunteers who I presume were creating the game largely in their spare time and at their own expense, while offering the game to everyone completely free, I do feel that there are a few ways in which Archolos strays from the successful Gothic formula that I love so much, with a few aspects that I feel aren't quite as good as the originals, or that otherwise sour my overall enjoyment a little. So I don't think I can actually rate it as being the best Gothic game. Bear in mind that Archolos' praises have been sung high and low already by fans who voted it overwhelmingly as the best mod of 2021 and the best modern mod of recent memory, leading to it being dubbed the mod of the decade on ModDB. Quite simply, you don't need me to tell you that the game is good and worth playing. If you know and like the original Gothic games, then of course Archolos is worth playing because it's basically the exact same game but with tons of new features and content. They're so similar that, at a certain point, me articulating what makes Archolos a good game is just me reviewing Gothic. which is not really specific to Archolos, and so I don't want to just rehash those same points I've been making over and over again in various written articles and videos for the last 14 years. And at least to me, it's not very interesting for a review to just reiterate all the ways that a game is exactly like something that came before, while all of the new stuff that it brings to the table should be self-evident without me having to point it all out. So to me, the more interesting aspect is to discuss the ways in which it's not like Gothic and why I would have a hard time rating it as the better game. This review is therefore going to be a little more critical than your average hype train praise-a-thon, but I need to stress that I'm not saying any of this to ridicule the hard work that its creators put into it. Their effort is extraordinary and deserves the utmost respect I can give. I just think the game has some issues that I wish could have been better, and they only bother me because the game is so good overall that they stand out as blemishes on what I believe could have been a perfect, or at least near perfect game. As always, I will try to be impartial by considering every possible angle and perspective when I can, but at the end of the day, I can only speak to how the game played out in my experience, which may not reflect everyone else's experience universally. Please note that I have talked about Archolos at length already in 3 previous videos, not including my obvious April Fool's joke, which I did slip a few legitimate criticisms into, and so I don't want to repeat too many things that I've already mentioned elsewhere unless I feel it becomes relevant to some greater point I want to make here. This review is not really meant to be a comprehensive analysis of every little thing in the game, in other words, but will instead be more of my final thoughts after finishing the game twice while trying to focus on what I consider to be the main important subjects. I will try to phrase and edit this entire review to avoid major spoilers pertaining to the story and main quest, with adequate warnings before getting into any of that, but there will still be plenty of minor spoilers for less significant things like specific side quests and other bits of optional content. So while I think you could watch this review before playing the game and not have your enjoyment adversely affected by it, you still might want to be careful depending on how sensitive you are to spoilers.